truth, and life. Here is the Brother Leon Show. You better recognize.
What's going on, listeners? This is your boy, Brother Leon, and you are tuning into another episode of the Brother Leon Show. So, hey, we getting ready going right in here. Man, we are gearing up for our Clubhouse edition. We got the Love Collective coming on back. And one thing that I want you guys to understand and know is that there is a takeaway from everything that you are going to ever experience in life. And that's the God knows truth. There is a lesson, there is a takeaway, because life will send you teachers. And the one thing that I want you guys to understand this evening is that we're going to have people coming on. We're going to have a whole lot of guests and panelists who are going to talk about their takeaways and what life has taught them, even in divorce. Because some of the people that I'm bringing on here right now, they found their greatest purpose after the tragic event of divorce. I'm serious. Divorce was supposed to break them, but the crazy thing about God is that even in this, that all things work together for our good. And so you're going to hear the testimony of our guests, and I'm not going to lie, man, it's going to be good. It's going to be great. So I'm definitely looking forward to having all of you guys on here. So hey, we got Dr. Lang on here. We got the Sage on here. So hey, I'm actually excited about all this. So hey, ladies, can you please introduce yourselves?
Good evening. I'm Reverend Dr. Ashella Reed, and I am blessed to be here. Divorce has changed my life in ways that I have yet to understand. There is life after divorce. There is vision after divorce. There is joy after divorce. I will tell you that destiny, as a result of being divorced, changes things. I will say that you do have to go through your healing process, because you're going to be angry, you're going to be hurt, you're going to be broken. Yet, after all of that, God is still able to bring you through. So I look forward to a very good conversation tonight. And Brother Leon, thank you for creating this platform.
All right, let me give you some applause, Doc. All right, coming to the mic, we have, I call her the Sage, Miss Eden Adele. All right.
I like that. Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Brother Leon. I am Eden Adele, and affectionately referred to as the Passionator. Divorce is one of those crises that come in many of our lives, despite our best intentions. What happens afterward is entirely up to us. It will be whatever we make of it. It doesn't have to break us. It is another opportunity for us to remake our and out better than we ever imagined. So I'm looking forward to this conversation. Thanks for inviting me.
All right, let me give you some applause. All right, we got next coming to the stage. Oh my God. We got the love mechanic. I call her the heart whisperer. We got Miss Alicia Bennett. Miss Alicia Bennett, can you introduce yourself?
Sorry about that. I was trying to get the people out the house. So y'all heard all of that. But sorry about that. My name is Alicia Bennett. I am the dating mechanic. I'm a relationship and dating coach, and I'm happy to be here today.
All right, let me give you some applause. So I am so looking forward to this discussion. That's the God knows truth. Because, there's definitely a takeaway when it comes to divorce. I think a lot of times people, they use it, and a lot of times it breaks them. But after talking to some of you, I'm not going to lie, it seemed like more stuff and better stuff came out of you because of what happened. And now you all are in a position to definitely help a lot of people. And so that's the one thing that I so appreciate about all of you. So we definitely getting ready to dive into this. Let me pull up the questions and everything. But before I go there, let me just ask you this. When you were going through the whole, divorce thing, because a lot of people, the pain of it is like, I don't know if I can make it through this. Did any of you ever experience like, okay, can I make it through this? Can I pull through and get to the other side? So that's the first question that I want to bring.
I definitely had those moments. I think it was probably because I felt so excited by the way it all happened to me, because in my case, my ex-husband told me one day that he was leaving and a week later he was gone. And I didn't see or hear from him again for 7 years. So that sort of, I can't say it was out of nowhere, because we were definitely having our problems. Communication was a problem. Trust was a big problem. We didn't connect about things that were important. He wasn't planning a future with us anymore. Us meaning me and my daughter. So those were all big things, but I didn't imagine that he would actually just poof, disappear. I didn't think he would vanish. So when he did, it took me a little while to regain my sense of balance, because I felt very much destabilized by his sudden departure. I didn't plan for it, and I didn't know how to prepare for it. So, and I had a daughter that I had to get into college. So I had to do that as a single woman again. So there were a lot of other factors that were keeping me off balance for a while. So it took me about a year to sort of feel like myself again, to some degree. It took me about a year. It wasn't instant by any stretch of the imagination. And I was in my 40s by then, so I wasn't a little girl by any stretch. I was a fully formed adult. And it was still devastating because I hadn't planned for it. I didn't really see it coming, and I felt blindsided by it. And in that respect, I think my story is very similar to a lot of other stories.
All right, I like that. Anybody else want to step up?
I do.
Okay, go ahead, Doc.
Yeah, for me, it was hard because I was a pastor at the time. And what I succumbed to, because just like women, you want to stay for your kids, you want to work it out, and then being a pastor, I'm doing all this marriage counseling, and you're supposed to work it out, you're supposed to go to counseling. But I happen to be married to a man who wanted to have outside relationships with no intention of being faithful. And so when I left, I said, I'm not leaving you because I don't love you. I'm leaving you so God won't kill you. Because the Bible says, touch not my anointed, do my prophet no harm. And you are just doing things to me for no good reason. I can see if I was a horrible wife or, if I was a cheat, but it was just because he was just a habitual cheater. So when I made the decision to succumb to divorce, because that was not my intention, my parents have been married 53 years. They met when they were 9. Started dating at 16, got married at 18. So I drank the juice. I wanted the fairy tale. And then, I had to realize that I had to keep retelling the story because we look like the perfect family. And so I had to keep retelling the story. What happened? What happened? How come you didn't stay? What happened? And I found that people were more gracious to him than they were to me. Like, they gave him a pass. He's just a man. But for me as a pastor, it was, you should have stayed because, you're stronger than that. Your faith, God could have turned it around. And I found that I was on an island by myself because very little people extended me some grace and say, you know what, Rev, that really sucks. You were a good wife. Your whole family is now changed. So it took me some time. I was angry for quite some time. My ex-husband's a minister of music. And I wanted him to get hit by lightning on the keyboard during praise and worship. I was really upset because I felt like he robbed me of a life of someone who could have loved me. You know, he put my children through a bunch of foolishness, you know, because every time he cheated, you know, they were there. And I kept having to cover, and I had to be strong, and I had to put on the face, and I had to do this. And I never got the opportunity just to say, this really sucks. And so it took me a minute. But from that, I wrote my first book called Does Love Cover That? The Healing Process of the Fruit of the Spirit. So in your pain, just like every preacher, we preach through our pain. And every good preacher will tell you, we're preaching to ourselves first. So I was in my 40s. And I think, how old was I? I think I was 40. And it was hard, but I survived. And I just had to depend on God. And so everybody's journey is different. I think movement through the divorce, moving through the grieving, moving through the anger, moving through the sadness, moving through the disgust that somebody would just leave you high and dry. You know, if my ex-husband had his way, we'd still be married. But that's not the way, you know, how a person loves you is how you train a person to love you. So if I allow you to treat me like I'm worthless, then absolutely you're going to treat me like I'm worthless. So it took a lot. I became very self-reflective. But, you know, through it all, I'm working on book number 10 now. So there is a way that God uses our pain. God uses our sadness. God uses our brokenness. And God uses our joy. And when you get to a point where you can accept that your new normal, that life is forever changed, and that there is life after divorce, then you can keep it moving and you can go on and be productive. And if that is what you so choose to do, love will find you. I'm Reverend Dr. Shellerine, and I yield the mic.
All right, Doc. I love that. I got to ask you a question. Let me ask you this, because I'm not going to lie. It's like, you know, a lot of people in the Christian world, can the Christian belief at times keep a person bound in a toxic relationship? Because, you know, we always hear that scripture, God hates divorce. You know what I mean? And people paraphrase that, they run off of that, and they try to tell you that the only way that you can be free from this relationship is if your spouse dies. Did you ever felt like that even though I'm in the Christian world, I feel like that I'm bound, I'm stuck because of these beliefs and everything like that? Did you ever feel like that?
Absolutely. And I was told that because I'm a pastor, I can't leave. I can't get a divorce. And what I say is, you know, the Bible says that, you know, a divorce was granted based on adultery, based on this, based on that, you know, but you got to look at life that it takes two. So if both parties aren't on the same page, or if you got married to somebody and you were unequally yoked, or maybe you thought you were equally yoked and then something changed, for whatever reason, we wear the mask of faith. We want to sound like we're Christians. We want to look like we're Christians, but implementing the word in such a way, you know, Jesus said, I came that you might have life and have it more abundantly. And then we make excuses for people's behavior, because clearly the Bible tells us what we should do, what we shouldn't do. If we just go based on 1 Corinthians 13, what love is and what love is not. And I feel sorry for the brothers who are getting a pass, because if you read Micah, it tells you that God is not listening to your prayers because God sees how you treated your wife. And I have yet to find a place where God is chastising a wife for how she treats her husband. And so we use the Bible to hold people hostage. I mean, I'm not saying that the Bible is not true. It is. But every text has a context. And a text taken out of context is a con. And so people can hold you hostage to a bunch of foolishness because in their mind, they have to stay stuck in their lives. So they want you to be stuck just like them.
I like that. I'm going to ask this question because I know me and Miss Eden, we talked about this. Some people feel as though that if I pray hard enough, then maybe that person will change. Did somebody ever, you know, try to convince you with that?
Yeah, you know, they try and say, you know, you fast and pray. Fasting, first of all, is for us to get disciplined. And so if you decide to fast on somebody else, you're doing the wrong thing. There are three wills in operation: God's perfect will, God's permissive will, and then God's gift to us free will. And no praying in the world is going to supersede somebody's free will. If God gave us free will and God's perfect will does not supersede our free will, what makes us think that our prayers will supersede God's perfect will? God has given us a choice. So you can pray all you want to. If that is not what that person wants to do, you're praying amiss.
Amen. All right. I like that. I like that, Doc. Let me give you some applause. So the one thing I want to say to anybody that's listening, if you're going to listen to the replay, God ain't going to make that man or woman do right. You can pray all day long. You can pray till your knees turn into liquid sauce. God ain't going to make them do that. They got to get right on their own, and they got to want it. You can want it for them all day long, but if they don't want it, they ain't going to get it. And that's the God knows truth. So, anybody else? Ms. Bennett, you want to comment on this?
To the first conversation of, I was studying to be a minister while I was married. And the whole conversation of you will go through trials and tribulations while you're, trying to be, become more Christ-like, and while you're going through this process, and, all of that kind of stuff. And I stayed in my marriage because of guilt. I felt guilty that I was supposed to stick it out, and I was supposed to, if I didn't stick it out, I was the one that was going to be, punished, and my life was going to be hard, and all these things. And finally was able to break free of that mindset, and feeling like I had to stay in something that was not mentally, emotionally healthy for me. And I think a lot of times we punish ourselves, right? Yes, other people are saying things, and what you should do and what you shouldn't do, and all of those kind of things. But my story is more not that people were telling me that I was wrong for wanting to leave or anything like that, but that I put all of that energy on myself. I put all of that guilt and what is everybody going to think, and my children are not going to have a father, and all of these things that were running through my head, right? I was in the church, and I was starting to do Bible study ministries with couples and those things, and feeling like I wasn't good enough. It was a long time before I could go out and do any type of relationship coaching or helping other couples, because I felt like I wasn't good enough to do that. And it's a blessing that I've been able to be free of that thinking. But it was more of I was putting everything on myself. It wasn't other people putting it on me. So I just wanted to point it out, because a lot of times that happens to people. It's not really what other people are saying. It's all of the pressure that they're putting on themselves.
Yeah. I totally get that. I thank you. I thank you for your transparency. I thank you all for your transparency. So let me start talking about myself. I think, I'm not gonna lie, man. I when I look at my life, I'm like, Lord, how and why? Because I've been married before, multiple marriages, multiple divorce, and that's where I come from. And I think the one thing that I can say is, at the time when I got married, my first marriage, I actually was the type of person that I pretty much was, got married out of fear of going to hell, fear because we was fornicating and everything like that. And what you're taught in the church a lot of times, when you are talking about sexual narratives and things of that nature, we always use the control mechanism of the devil and fornication and hell, but you hardly ever get that teaching about who you are as a person sexually. And then the crazy thing in church a lot of times is that you get the notion, okay, you guys can get married, if that person has a job, if they, have good credit, and if they save. And it's more to a person than just salvation, a job, and good credit, and everything like that. But I think the one thing with myself, I actually thought that I could save my wife, because at the time we were unequally yoked. I mean, all I knew was church. I never knew nothing about the streets, and that's the God knows truth, never. And so, getting in contact with a person who, wasn't really in church like that, had a lot of street knowledge. I mean, man, I was naive to a lot of things. And, at the time, I didn't know what addiction looked like. And so my wife, at the time, she was addicted to crack. And I didn't know nothing about that. So I'm like, and I remember asking my boy, I was like, dude, what is it? Yo, what type of drug that make your mouth all messed up? And he was like, dude, man, your wife got the mumbles. And I'm like, oh my God. And I mean, just seeing it firsthand, the torture. But I thought that if I love her enough, if I pray hard enough, that I could save her. And I mean, she even went as far as to say that, Leon, if you take me out of here, I'll be all right. And I did all that. Took her out of her mama's house, and we got into a house, and we went to hell. I'm not going to lie, we went to hell. But looking back now, I think probably, the straw that broke the camel's back for me, that really gave me a wake-up call, was right before I ended up taking her out of her mom's house. We had an incident where, she was getting high with some people and everything, and I went to confront them and everything like that. And so, I mean, it got ugly. It got to the place where it got turned into a fight. And I'm up here getting ready to swing. She comes right in the midst of me getting ready to swing. I stop mid-motion so I wouldn't hit her. Next thing I know, another dude from the side hits me with an aluminum bat. I fall to the ground. I'm getting stomped to death. Literally. And I think the crazy thing about it is that after taking that beating, I think probably what hurt worse than the beating was watching her get in the car and ride off with him. And that's the thing that probably hurt me the most, because I'm like, here it is. I'm trying my hardest, to save you, trying to be Superman and everything. And I met my kryptonite. Almost died that night. But I look back now, and it's crazy, because my takeaway from all of that is that I couldn't save her. And that, God hasn't called us to save people. Jesus, died so he could save us. Jesus saves people. We can't save certain people. And a lot of times we want to. A lot of times we feel as though that, this is our life mission. If I could just pray hard enough. I thought that, and my main focus was, okay, yeah, we married. And the reason why I'm marrying is because I don't want to go to hell because I'm fornicating. But a lot of times when you take and you do that, you open up another can of worms. And I am quick to tell people, hey, it's easy to ask for forgiveness than it is permission. And that's the God knows truth. Because if you sit up here and just be honest with yourself and say, yeah, it's about the sex, then okay, it's about the sex. But if you take and you go into the marriage with that motivation, it could turn into something else. So, I said when we was going to do this clubhouse that this thing was definitely going to be transparent and everything. But I think, it opened up my eyes. And I think probably the first thing that opened up my eyes is that I ain't Superman. And that's the God knows truth. So I want to start the first question. Had it not been for my divorce, I wouldn't be. So who want to take that question? Or if anybody got questions for me.
So you're saying if it had not been for divorce,
yeah,
I wouldn't be.
Yeah, if it had not been for my divorce, I wouldn't be da-da-da-da-da.
I wouldn't be able to extend grace to hurting people the same way I can now. Because sometimes we drink the juice of the church and we say, just pray about it. Just, suck it up and drive on, or, you'll get over it, or don't focus on that. And we don't give people the space and the grace to grieve. And so had it not been for my divorce, I wouldn't understand that everybody needs the space and the grace to be angry, to be hurt, and to heal.
Yeah, I like that, because a lot of times people feel as though that, you're a Christian. You ain't supposed to have thoughts of anger. I'm like, man, I had thoughts of anger. I had thoughts. I mean, I ain't gonna lie. I had to just. I'm like, Lord, you're gonna have to do something with my head because all these thoughts is coming in my mind right now. I totally get it. I totally get why people snap sometimes, because a lot of times the vulnerability, and then we don't allow people to have that time because they're
right. We don't
Yeah, but
space for people to be honest.
Yeah,
we motivate people to lie. It's a sad truth, but the structured systemic evil of the church creates bipolar Christians. We tell them to seek God for yourself, but don't show us the real truth. Like, you seek God, but don't bring your real self to church. Bring who we say you're supposed to be when you come to church. And that has messed a lot of people up. And they can't even tell you how they feel, because we don't do a good job of helping people manage their emotions. And so when it comes to walking by faith, that's a head thing and it's a heart thing. And so if we can't give people balance, then we set them up for failure.
Yeah, definitely. I like that. Thank you, Doc. Let me give you some applause. Anybody else want to chime in? Eden, Alicia, anybody else? If it hadn't been for my divorce, I wouldn't be.
Ooh, that's a great one. If it hadn't been for my divorce, I wouldn't be comfortable in my own skin at last. Because I was on that hamster wheel. My job as a wife was to help him become his best version. That was my definition of help me. And we weren't church leaders, but we did serve in ministry that was visible. Like, I was a leader in the dance ministry. I was a lead choreographer and assistant teacher, and he was a sax player in the band. So we were in front of the congregation literally every week. And so our whole relationship took place inside of that church. I was there first and then I met him, and he lived not too far away from that church. So he started coming to the church and made his own gifts, served in his own capacity, all that good stuff. So they watched our whole relationship evolve. And so when it all fell apart, everybody had some kind of input about how it happened, why it happened, what didn't I do, where didn't I hold up my end of this bargain. And after a lot of reflection about all of that, one thing that I realized was one of my biggest mistakes was trying so hard to be everything that he wanted me to be. That was one of my biggest mistakes. Because many times, in order to do that, I had to be somebody that I really wasn't. It wasn't that I couldn't do it. I had been performing all my life. I learned how to perform dealing with my father. So I knew how to perform for men. That wasn't an issue. The issue was I could sustain it over years, playing these roles and pretending to be somebody that I wasn't in order to keep him happy, which meant keeping him at home. My goal was to keep him at home. Not even so much for myself, but because I had a daughter involved who absolutely adored him, and he was the only father she ever knew. And her genetic father never had a relationship with her and didn't have the heart to deny her another father. So I did whatever I needed to do. I performed whatever I needed to perform that I thought would keep him happy, that I thought would keep him home. And ultimately, it still didn't work. Because even when he got everything he asked for, he still found something different somewhere else. And that was really the big people what they want doesn't make them happy. Happiness doesn't come from somebody else giving you what you want. All it really does is make you want more.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened to me.
Wow.
Because at some point you run out. You run out of ways to be. You run out of hoops to jump through. You run out of knots to tie yourself into to try to meet whatever they need from you. And I knew how to do that. I had mastered that over the 8 years that we were together. I had mastered it. That wasn't the problem. The problem was it was sucking my soul dry to do it because that wasn't who I was.
Yeah.
So going forward, I know the one thing that I have to do is just be who I am and give a man an opportunity to love me for that.
Yeah.
Because that's something I can sustain.
Yeah.
That's something I can do and be happy to do it.
Exactly. I think the crazy thing is, we sometimes we feel like, if I sow it, I'm going to reap it back. And I totally get where you're coming from because we feel as though that, okay, I'm going to give this, I'm going to get it back. I'm going to get it back in this relationship. And a lot of times it's like you gave it out, but you ain't going to get it back here. You know what I mean? And,
exactly.
And we have sacrificed. I know with myself, I'm like, I've sacrificed peace. I've sacrificed everything that I could possibly sacrifice for the sake of an argument, for the sake of peace, for the sake of trying to, keep us all together, even for the sake of the kids. But at the end of the day, you just can't sustain it. You just can't sustain it. And it's almost like you were saying, you did everything. And it's almost like you were entertaining. You were saying that you were entertaining. And after a while, it's like, I done seen that.
Entertaining.
I done seen that.
Right.
I've
seen that
new.
trick. Do another one.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
that's exactly what it turns out to be.
Yeah. And what happens when all of a sudden it feels like, sorry, I need something else. I need something new. This thing got old. What do you do? That's it. Yeah. What do you do?
I'm bored now. Time to go.
Exactly.
And that's where I was sitting. And what do you do with that?
Yeah.
Like, that is a position of powerlessness that I was not accustomed to because I had been living my life as being the one who called the shots. That I was the one who was in control of how my life unfolded. Good, bad, or indifferent, I had some measure of control over that. But in this case, not at all.
Yeah.
Like, not at all. There is literally nowhere to go from, I'm out. Yeah. There's nowhere to go from there.
Yeah, exactly.
And the Lord knows I tried.
Yeah.
Because of all those other considerations, it's not because I was so happy or because I was so in love, even though we had some great times and I was in love. I still love him. He's remarried. I still love him, but I would not never be in another relationship with him.
Yeah.
Because those are two different conversations. Two very different conversations.
Exactly.
Love is not the conversation you need to be having when you decide whether or not to be with somebody. But that's a different podcast.
Yeah, we definitely gonna have to have that one. Let me give you some applause. All right. Miss Alicia, you got anything to add? Doc, you got anything to add?
I had to say, Sage, Eden, I love how you talked about performing because I believe as little girls we are taught to perform for men. And
yes!
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to yell, but it's so true.
It is true. We're taught to perform, and then we get older and realize, and it becomes so ingrained in us that we can't differentiate performing and loving. We can't differentiate when a man is intrigued by a performance or intrigued by us. And so I love how you bring that up. And I too realize that I learned how to perform. And at any given moment, I can call on the performance, and it's just total, seems like my new normal. And I have to be confident enough to say, wait a minute, you don't have to perform. You like almost 50. Why are you performing? So I appreciate you bringing that up.
Thank you so much. Oh my gosh. I am with you. I am right there with you. That performance thing is something I grew up hearing all my life. I don't remember not hearing it. I'll put it that way. I don't remember ever not hearing it. And I grew up, my mother married my father twice. They got divorced for the last time when I was 5 years old. My father went on to marry 2 other women 3 times. So it's not like I grew up watching stable relationships and how they happen. But what I did learn from the arguments between my parents was I was supposed to be what my father wanted me to be if I wanted him to spend time with me. And while I was with him, I had to advocate in some way, somehow, for my mother's benefit as well in order to be a loyal daughter. Now I know this really is a whole topic. I just point that out to say that was where I learned to perform. I was 5. There is no volition at that point. There is no discernment at that point. There is none of that. There is only every seed is yes. Everything. Whether it makes sense or not doesn't matter. You're just soaking up information at that age, and you're not discerning whether or not it's actually good for you. You're just accepting it all. And that was where I got programmed as a performer. And it took my husband walking out on me for me to realize that that's what I was doing. Because by that time, I had been doing it for 40 years. And nobody ever told me that that's what I was doing because I thought I was being a good Christian. Again, another podcast.
Yeah,
I just wanted to thank you for the support.
Let me ask you this. Because what I'm hearing right now is that song, I'm Every Woman.
There it is.
You know what I mean?
Whatever you need me to be.
Yeah.
Because that's my job as a wife. That's the conditioning. Little girls from easy bake ovens and Barbie dolls all the way up. That's what we keep hearing in one way or another from the time we learn to talk. The conditioning for men is very different in the church. It's very different.
Yeah.
And I didn't grow up in the church. I was in the church as an adult. So that's different too. But the conditioning for little girls around our position with men is all about entertaining and elevating, performing. Be what they want. Be what they want. Go to any industry targeted toward women, and you will see some variation of that message. Whether it's fashion, beauty, television, media, whatever, there is some variation of that message to women. Be what he wants, and you won't have anything to worry about.
Yeah, we see that with Instagram. I ain't gonna lie.
Oh my God, we see it on Clubhouse.
Yeah,
we see it here, and all there is audio. Because the conditioning is so thorough, and it's so everywhere. There's no escaping it. The reinforcement of that idea is literally everywhere we look. It's in our friendships with each other. It's in our relationships with our family. It shows up when we go to work. It shows up when we're not even looking for it. It's at the magazine rack when we're at the checkout counter. It's everywhere. And that's not an accident.
Yeah, you're right. It's not an accident. Let me give you some applause. That's the God knows truth. I'm thinking about that movie, Waiting to Exhale, and I think it was a line in that movie that one of the actresses said, if I give him what he want, then he gonna give me what I need.
That was Angela Bassett.
Okay, that was Angela
That's
Bassett.
exactly what she said.
Waiting to exhale.
That's exactly what she said. Yes, it was.
Okay.
Yes, it was.
Okay. And the crazy thing about it is that, you know, we feel as though that we can sustain it. And a lot of times when it comes to people's emotional needs, when it comes to people's brokenness, I don't care what you do. You can't sustain it. And that brokenness can't be healed by what you give them externally. You know, and even some of the things that you give them internally, you know, with the emotional stuff. And sometimes, like, yo, you're going to have to deal with that. You're going to have God, some therapy or something, but I can't be your healer. I can't be your Wonder Woman. And the crazy thing about it is that there's a lot of women that think, I'm Wonder Woman, I'm this, I'm that, but you got to look at it. Even though Superman was Superman, he was also Clark Kent. And even with Wonder Woman, we forget that she was Diana Prince. And so you can't sustain it. And it's like, on to the next one. Because I done got bored here. I need a new high. I need a new fix. So I'm out.
That's it.
So, hey, Miss Bennett, you wanna comment on any of this? Because I know we done said a lot.
Yeah, I actually had to break myself free of that mindset. It's like when I was in high school, I did everything I could to break free from the norm of things, right?
Yeah.
On purpose, I would do the opposite of what women are supposed to do, ladies are supposed to do, right? I was still feminine, but I would make sure that the things that I was doing was not, you know, only for ladies, right? And then when I got married, I automatically went into that role of what it looked like to everyone else without even trying, right? It was just something that was ingrained in me and never had been married before, but ingrained that this is how you act as a wife, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't any of the things that mattered. It was just the things that were taught to you superficially. And then, you know, my relationship after my marriage, he didn't get any of that because I refused. I refused to do that. So the things that I could have been doing to make the relationship better, I refused. I would not do those things for that purpose of not wanting to be, wanting to put myself back in that position. Now in the relationship that I'm in, you know, and that other person, that's what they wanted. They wanted me to be like their mom. They wanted me to be the old school, you know, woman that did all of those things, right?
Yeah.
In the relationship that I'm in now, that person doesn't require any of that. Like Eden was saying before, they just want me, just to be yourself, right? And whatever goes with that. They're not requiring me to be the housewife and the, you know, all of those things. That's not on their mind.
Yeah. So
it's been very interesting, the relationships that I've had, the opportunities that I've had to be able to see everybody's position and what they're going through, being a relationship coach, right? I have knowledge of a lot of different ways of doing things.
Yeah, definitely. Let me give you some applause. So I want to go to the next question. Here's the last question I'm going to ask. My divorce drove me and caused me to see, fill in the blank. And I think with me, I would say my divorce drove me to see that, number one, it's a whole lot of things that they don't tell you in church or in the Bible when it comes to marriage, when it comes to divorce. You know, it doesn't you know, tell you, you know, some of the questions that you should ask while you're dating. The Bible really don't tell you how to date. The Bible really don't even tell you how to have a joint banking account. It don't say nothing about that. It don't really say anything when it comes to blended families. And I think a lot of things that I see right now is that you have to begin to look outside of the scope that you're used to. And a lot of times, I think the thing that I see right now is that we get disappointed because we feel as though I'm doing all this stuff. I done did the church thing. I didn't did it like that, but I still don't have the success or the outcome that I'm looking for. And so it's crazy that that happens. But the one thing that I will take away from it all is that it gave me knowledge. It gave me knowledge about self. It gave me knowledge on, mean what you say what you mean, don't sugarcoat nothing, and learn how to listen. Oh my God, I'm still learning how to listen, because a lot of times you have to delve deep and really listen to what is actually being said with actions, with words, learn patterns in situations like that. But I think the crazy thing, man, I'm not gonna lie, man, I didn't realize how divorce was until I got those papers. And that's the God knows truth. And I ain't gonna lie, my decree was beautiful. I mean, it actually looked better than my marriage certificate. That's the crazy thing about it. And I'm like, wow. And just going through the whole thing, I was like, Lord, it was jacked up. We shouldn't have been together from the door. But as messed up as it was, and knowing that we shouldn't have been together from the door, it just hurt. And I'm like, why does it hurt like this? I'm like, man, if you look back, like, yo, she wasn't good for me. I wasn't good for her. And, now it's like, I don't get it. But I think the crazy thing is that when relationships end, we go through that grieving process. But my takeaway from it, had it not been for divorce, I probably wouldn't be where I am right now, because now it's opened up my eyes to a lot of things. It opened up my eyes to trying to see perspectives outside of the Christian perspective, because that's what I got used to. I felt as though that if it ain't Christian, it ain't right, it ain't good. And now I come to understand and realize is that you don't have to have a Christian perspective to be good, to do good. You just have to have the want to work and the willingness to work and be consistent in it and everything. Because at the end of the day, as much as I love Christians, as much as I love the church needs work. Christians need work. And we're still on a journey. We're still on a journey of discovery. And that's the one thing that I take away from divorce, and even, relationships that were broken. I think the one thing that I'm learning is, honesty. And a lot of times, man, we lie to ourselves. We use our faith to lie. We use our faith to lie to each other. We use our faith to lie to ourselves. And I think we have to get to the place where we're honest. I think the crazy thing about it is that a lot of marriages break apart because the Bible does say, when you look at Genesis, and they were naked and not ashamed. And I think a lot of times when we see people's nakedness, we get ashamed. We get ashamed of our own nakedness because we're vulnerable. We get ashamed of other people's nakedness because we see their vulnerability too. Or we don't even like what we see. Like, ooh, wow, they done had on that mask. Put your clothes back on. It's crazy. But we don't like what we see when we see the vulnerability, when we see the transparency and honesty. But I look at the fact of, in your nakedness, you can begin to know one another, and you can begin to celebrate one another. But also learn, okay, this is where they're sensitive at. This is where I'm sensitive at. Let's not try to mess that thing up. But a lot of times, Christian marriages, they fail because we're not honest with each other. Marriage itself fails because we're not honest with each other. And a lot of times we don't have integrity and we don't listen. Because a lot of times, the flags and the signs is there, but, I know I seen that, but I'm going to just believe God. Here we go. We got Miss Belize. Can you introduce yourself?
Oh, hi, guys. Sorry for being tardy. But I'm Belize Spivey. I am known as the SC Life Coach. I help men and women living with herpes. I help them become educated about their status on top of helping them getting their confidence back so they can start living again. So that's what I do. And kind of like chiming in with the divorce thing, I started doing what I'm doing now when I was in the middle of my marriage at that time, ex-marriage, but in the middle of that. But then I had to leave that marriage because it literally I was being smothered. I couldn't grow. So I had to leave the marriage. It really, like, as much as he kind of let me blossom and do what God called me to do, he was also mad at what I was doing because it was causing us to realize that we are not growing together and I'm not going to outgrow him. And I ended up ending that marriage.
All right. Thank you for that. Thank you for sharing that with us. Because we were talking about, if it wasn't for my marriage, I wouldn't be. And then we're talking about the takeaways. And I was just, talking about what I learned, and what I learned and what I see is that we got to start being honest with one another. And that's the God knows truth. I think there's so many excuses that we blame on the failure of Christian marriages. And you start looking at the statistics, the statistics for divorce in Christian households is higher than it is for worldly households. And the crazy thing about it is that, we're supposed to have God. God's supposed to make everything.
It ain't no God in it. I'm going to be honest. That's the problem. God is really not in it. I think, just to be very transparent, I'm probably the youngest one here. I wasn't raised in the church or anything like that. But just looking at some of my friends who are not Christians, I realize they are more realistic and more logical. Christians are so fake. And they got this fake view of life. I don't know who created that crap, but it's just dumb. I'm just going to call it for what it is, dumb. And they wonder why things don't work because they don't really listen to what they supposed to listen to, which you would think you got the Holy Spirit, you should follow it. But they ignore it and they have this false sense of life and what's supposed to look like. And it's supposed to be all good and dangerous because God's in the midst. And it's dumb. It's dumb. Like, very much dumb. And I think that's the reason why it's very high with Christians is because at the end of the day, they're not realistic. They're just so not realistic. They're in the clouds that honestly they shouldn't be, and they just come back down to reality and deal with themselves. And let's be honest, they don't talk about it in the church. They just tell you wait to marriage and blah 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 with lack of teaching and lack of structure and not real real conversations and things like that because everybody want to act like they got it together, and that's why so many people are getting divorced because everybody got it together, quote unquote.
Yeah, I totally see that because a lot of times, if we get together as Christians, we feel as though, okay, we're equally yoked. We're going to be exempt from a lot of the problems that other people have. And I'm like, you're going to get a wake-up call. You're going to get a wake-up call because even though you may be saved, you can still be unequally yoked. You can still, it doesn't exempt you because you got Christ. It doesn't exempt you from the problems of life. The Bible says that it rains on the just as well as the unjust. And I think a lot of times people forget that. But
I think
no, go ahead.
I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna be completely honest. Half of the people who are even believers are not equally yoked. Just because we accepted Jesus Christ, don't fully say we equal. Because if you don't even believe in everything you read or you're not even living it, just say if I'm literally walking in my calling and I'm doing certain things and you're not, we're not equally yoked. I'm being obedient and you're stagnant. Where is that equal? That's not equal.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing. We got to get literal. Are you where you're supposed to be and being obedient in your life? And I'm not saying you got to be perfect because I know many couples you get together and one person is kind of behind each other in different areas of life. That's realistic. That's going to happen. Y'all not going to be perfect. That's the purpose of having help and y'all coming together and y'all supporting each other in those weak areas. But I don't think we look more outside of what we believe in. Are we even on the same level of what we believe in? Because some people can have the same beliefs and still don't believe the same thing.
Yeah.
A title don't make you equally yoked.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. Let me give you some applause for that. You said a title doesn't make you equally yoked. Let me ask you this. Did any part of your marriage, because we were talking about performance, and Eden touched on it as well as Dr. Lang. And so I want to ask you, did you ever feel as though that you had to perform for your husband?
Perform in what way? Are you talking about pertaining to my role?
Yeah, pertaining to your
what do you mean?
role, or performing like, okay, I got it. Let me do this because I'm trying to keep everything on the up and up. Did it ever feel like a performance?
Yes, it did. We were both being fake. Just go keep it absolute real. We were both being fake because it never was a real conversation on what we really expected out of each other, not what we expected from past relationships, because we were dealing with a lot of past, but we never really had a conversation with each other pertaining to what, we expected from each other. And by the time we got there, we don't argue, we don't fight. Now we're trying to work on it, but I don't hurt your feelings, you don't hurt my feelings in the process. So now I'm mad at you at this point of how you treated me or how you communicated me what you wanted. So yeah, it was a lot of that, of trying to, I can speak for myself, it was a lot of me trying to live up to a standard that was never set.
Wow. Okay.
It was never set. It was never really, I can say we never really had a real conversation without fussing, yelling, cussing, throwing stuff. That was my house. I'm keeping it real. We didn't never had it. And if we tried to, it turned real fast. Because I was like, okay, that means we really just can't talk to each other. This is really the issue, but we didn't see that.
Yeah, definitely. So let me ask the other panelists. Any questions? Anything you guys want to add?
I would say that I appreciate how you brought it, how it was real. You know what I mean? That a lot of people who say that they're Christians aren't equally yoked, and from outside looking in, or just on the surface, even my marriage, you would think we were equally yoked because I was a pastor and he was a minister of music. But just because you in the church don't mean that God is in you.
Yeah,
that part.
Right. And so they make it's like a cover almost. It's like it's a mask. It's like I can. It's like you putting something over a wound, knowing that it's going to open back up, but it looks pretty right now until you stretch a little bit, and then all the stuff is going to come oozing out. And I think as the systemic evil that is happening in the church, that we are creating liars, and we're gravitating to the lie more than the truth, and that is becoming the new normal. And I think COVID has really uncovered a bunch of foolishness that was happening in the church and outside of the church.
You better speak.
Yeah.
The whole truth.
I think even with COVID is really showing you what you got in your relationship. I'm serious. Especially if you got work from home. Because it's like
people don't really like they don't even like themselves of others. Yeah. I've realized so many people who do not like themselves. And realize how many people use sex as a cover-up.
Oh, say that again. Say that again.
Now that's another podcast.
Say that again. Sex as a cover-up.
Yeah, a lot of people have that problem. And I think it shows because outside of sex, they couldn't survive. Yeah. Like now you're at home, and especially if you have children, and what if a spouse lost a job, or they end up getting COVID, and they got really, really sick. It really made them realize, like, dang, we didn't talk about what if you die. We didn't talk about life insurance. We didn't talk about how do we take care of the kids outside of me just taking their kids. What if I got to go to work and you at home? It's been a lot of switcheroos lately where men at home because they work a lot of physical jobs, and the women are able to work at home because she has more desk type jobs. It's messing with people's view of their roles.
Yeah.
They don't know what to do. I don't think a lot of people get married, which I'm so excited about. Because I was like, yeah, they probably survive because they just realize they really, really like each other. Like we really can survive, through a pandemic, and we're fine. But the people who've been married for a while, man, the only thing that's been saving them, the fact they ain't been at home. That's the only reason that a lot of people still married is just because they're not with each other majority of the time.
You are telling the absolute truth.
Exactly.
The absolute truth. Let me tell you something. You are telling that. I think, listen, I'm an Army chaplain, and I got more folks like, chaplain, we need some counseling. Chaplain, we home stuck. Chaplain, we home, and we got to see each other all day. And I'm thinking, well, if you married your best friend, wouldn't you want to be at home? They're like, no.
It's not their best friend. Like, I'm going to be really honest with you. And this is just me. After being married, and we both said each other we wasn't best friends, right? And I came to ask myself, do I want my husband to be my best friend? Or is that something I was taught to want?
I like that.
I had to ask myself that real question. Because I was like, everybody like, my husband's my best friend. And typically I'm young. So I was like, well, these people been married for 30, 40 years. I'm listening to my elders. I'm listening to people older than me, looking to advice from them. And I'm looking like, well, I guess that's what I want. And then I look like, dang, my homegirl better than you. I don't. You're not my best friend. You're not my best friend. I don't want that from you. But now I'm looking now, and I do want to get married again. I don't even think I want him in that role. I don't want to put that. I want us to figure out what we want, not me just say I want you as a best friend, because I don't want to do everything with my partner. I just don't. I got two great best friends. Like, there's certain things I don't want us to feel like, we have this certain standard that we got to do so much together. Because with your own girls, you do a lot of stuff. I don't know, you do a lot of stuff. I want you to feel like you have a separate life outside of me. But it took me a while after being married to realize, is that even what I want? Or just I've been listening to other people, and just because that's what they wanted and it seemed like it worked, that I should do that to have this longevity.
I like that. I like that. I like that. I like that. And the question that's coming up in my head, hearing you say that, is, can we function in that role? Because I ain't gonna lie, I've heard it. You got your boys over here, you got your girls over here, and a lot of times in that, it's like, okay, if I make that person my life, what type of life am I going to have? And a lot of times, even in church, we're almost taught to a certain degree that you're supposed to make that person your whole life. I see a whole lot of Christian women give up their purposes, give up their dreams.
It's ridiculous.
And they forget about themselves, and they pour everything into their man. And he gets.
I'm so glad you brought this up.
Yeah, and he gets to the place. He gets to the place. There, let me finish. He gets to the place where he didn't elevate it, and now he looking at you all crazy. All side-eyed, talking like, yo, you ain't growing. We unequally yoked. Yeah, we are unequally yoked. I poured everything into you.
Oh my God! Right here.
I done poured everything into you. And now you looking at me all crazy talking about I ain't grow. Yeah. It's supposed to be you're supposed to reciprocate that. We supposed to grow together, but I sacrificed everything into you, and now you done rose up, and now you feel like you don't need me no more.
Well, he don't need you no more because you didn't do nothing but support one person and never did nothing for yourself. You're right. He don't need you, or she don't need you no more.
Yeah.
I was in that situation. You supported me. You took care of the kids. I traveled. You financially took care of the household, even though he did a horrible job, but he did the best he could with the little knowledge he did. And I blew up in, like, literally things started. I said, I can't be with you. You can't go. You can't go. You don't know how to grow with me. I'm being honest. I did it. So I get that. But that's because that person didn't see the drive within themselves to give it a try like I did. Mm-hmm. And take the risk like I did. So they just like, well, I'll sit back and let you do it and I'll eat off you. Eating off me gonna make you feel low. Because you don't look at me and say, oh, how's she doing that? And I started to get it, I think you talking to somebody else. Because you know I'm gonna find somebody else better than you at this point. Yeah. Because you're sitting still.
Yeah. Hey, Miss Eden, go. You wanted to say something. Go ahead and say it.
Somebody, quote, falls in love. It takes precedence over best friends. It takes priority over family. It sometimes substitutes for even work and other social relationships. This relationship takes the place of all of those relationships.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
Because it will too. He's not supposed to take the place of your best friend. He is supposed to be somebody that you feel comfortable trusting. You have to be comfortable being vulnerable with him. You have to be comfortable being honest with him. You have to believe that what's important to you is also important to him and that he's going to prioritize that. I'm not denying any of that. However, that doesn't also mean that because you fell in love with this man, you can now kick your girl to the curb who's been with you since kindergarten, who has seen you through all of your ups and downs and crazy turnarounds, now that you have this man in your life. Because the truth is, the minute something goes wrong in your relationship, the first person you're going to be looking for is your best friend. The one who's known you longer and who knows you better than the man that you married. And that should not be a threat to your relationship. Falling in love with somebody isn't a cue to replace all the other loving relationships in your life.
Yeah.
That way you leave enough room for your love relationship to actually have air to breathe and space to grow. Because you don't put all this extra pressure on it to be for you everything that all your other love relationships have been for you up to that point. Girl, he is not supposed to replace those people. He's supposed to be a wonderful addition to those people. I compare it oftentimes to the infamous cake analogy. A well-baked cake can stand alone and be delicious. But if you frost it, you give it that little extra oomph. Falling in love is frosting. It is not cake.
I like that.
If you take away the cake, the frosting cannot stand on its own. It is
You are preaching
dessert.
Oh, yeah. I'm serious. Yeah, you definitely preaching. Because I ain't going to lie. I felt as though, yo, the sex is the frosting. I felt like, yo, the sex is all that.
Frosting. It is not the cake. People trying to make whole desserts out of frosting and then getting pissed off when it doesn't work.
Yeah.
it melts.
But it was never meant to. It's never been. That's not what it's supposed to do.
Oh my
It's
God.
just frosting.
Yeah. You know what? I got to be honest. I'm like, yo, if I'm going to have frosting, let me have that funfetti because I like that funfetti frosting. I'm like, okay. Look, they got 3 for $10. I'm buying 3 cans of frosting.
I'm just saying, it's great. It's delicious. It's wonderful. But if you take the cake away, it can't stand up on its own.
Exactly.
Cake can stand on its own. It doesn't need to be frosted to be delicious. It doesn't need frosting to be cake.
Exactly.
It can stand on its own. Frosting cannot stand on its own without a cake.
Yeah, you're
That's
definitely
the
right.
difference.
Definitely
That's
right.
the difference.
Yeah. And all that time, I was
You just
thinking,
opened my eyes tremendously. That's why I had good. The icing was so good, but he was a horrible cake.
There it is. There it is.
He had no
People
milk.
are trying to
He had
build
no
whole
egg.
relationships on
It was
frosting.
dry.
oh my God. Oh my God.
I didn't even, but no, that analogy breaks it down so good because it's easy to understand food. For most of us, we can understand food. And I feel like we're compared to that. That makes so much sense. What we see first is always the frosting. You don't have no clue what the cake tastes like. You eat frosting first.
There it is.
Sometimes it's more frosting than it is cake.
Yeah.
Yes, go to any bakery.
Yeah.
Go to any bakery and look at how they frost compared to the cake, especially cupcakes. There may be 2 or 3 times more frosting than cake when you buy a cupcake.
You're right about that.
You got a lot of work to do to get past the frosting to see what that cake is actually made of. To see what the flavor is, to see what the texture is, to see how it fills you, how it satisfies you, how it sustains you. You got to get through all the frosting first. Unless you just take it off and go straight to the cake.
Yeah.
Some people do that. But ain't a lot of people.
I am one of those people. But a lot of people are not willing to do that for their relationship. They will not take the frosting to see what the cake is. They are so focused on being good frosting.
Good.
So then I have a question for you.
Flashes. Oh my God! If I get some more money to flash. Oh my God!
Listen.
That's frosting. Because none of that has anything to do with your relationship skill. And can I just say this without offending too many people? Love is not a panacea for a shitty relationship.
Oh, yeah.
Love is not
It
enough.
never has been and it never will be.
You
Who had a question?
No, I said she can say that again.
It came back to me after a conversation that I was having last night about this very thing. People want to use love as this panacea. Horrible relationship. And they will tell you chapter and verse, roll out the scroll on how horrible their relationship is. They can recite the incidences to you.
but I love him.
He said he did that, blah, 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 and that is the punchline. But I love him. Love is not a panacea for a shitty relationship. It will not fix things.
Yes.
It won't.
Hallelujah. Oh, my God.
It just won't.
It won't.
That's
It really
money
won't.
and beauty and status and the illusion of power and all that other stuff. People flash at each other. Look at my frosting. Look at my frosting. Look at my frosting. Has nothing to do with how they will be once you close that door and have relationship with them from one day to the next.
Yeah. Yeah.
Has nothing to do with that. That's where you're going to meet their character. That's where you're going to meet their honesty. That's where you're going to meet their vulnerability. And if that doesn't happen, it doesn't matter how many Instagram filters you put on. There are a lot of people who have talked themselves into staying into relationships that should have ended.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Using that very argument.
Yeah.
Because it goes back to, but I love him. The minute you paint love on it, that's supposed to make everything else you painted over okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. What about those relationships where it's just the sex? It's like, you know what? We ain't going to discuss this. Let's just have some sex and think about it later on. Think about it later. And it's like
Dangerous.
later never comes up.
It's dangerous because it's going to always come up. Always. It started to seep into the relationship slowly. Because folks are starting to, you ain't answer my phone calls. Who you with? You're like, but we're having sex and that's it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. You cannot just give your body to somebody and don't care about them. I don't care when anybody says people. I did this for a long time myself. It's a lie. You're just not giving yourself. I mean, you giving all that you got to a person and say you don't have no feelings. That sounds great, but no.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Feelings do come up over time. It is both of y'all realize y'all don't want to do the work.
Yeah.
Sex easy. Pump, 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 done, out. The clothes don't go home.
Yeah. Yeah.
But vulnerability is work. Helping you when you at your low is work. Help you when you losing family member after family member after family member is work. I can only imagine people who are having to help a spouse or a boyfriend or girlfriend grieve. That is one of the hardest things to ever do. It's not easy. And don't say they lose the people back to back to back to back to back. They not coming back the same. They ain't even gonna love you the same. Sex is done. You can throw some stuff out the window for a little bit.
Yeah.
How people deal with that? You know, it's just different things that, just like you were saying, like people are not getting to the freaking cake. And I wanted to ask you that question. How do people get to the cake? And I'm being so honest because I think we hear it, but then people are like, well, I still don't know how to do that.
I'm so glad you brought that up. Mm-hmm. Because it's not that hard. It's just that most people aren't willing to do it because it takes time. While we get busy getting hooked on what people look like, feel like, smell like, sound like, spin like, flash like, we don't give them an opportunity to show who they really are. That's what you see. Give them some months to prove to you that they can actually be trusted before you open your entire body to them. I don't fair a lot of people probably, they may have a problem with this, but instant is usually going to work against you. Whatever you feel first, whatever you feel fastest, whatever you feel foremost initially in the beginning is usually going to work against you, primarily because it's hormonally driven. It's a dopamine blast. Dopamine will always set you up for failure. If you base your relationships on how they felt to you, it's like relationships supposed to feel good. Be good is the cake. And it takes time for a person to show you that they are actually a good person, that they have your best interest as a priority in their lives. They need an opportunity to show you that. That has to come through in what they do, not what. That has to come through in what they do. The consistency of how they treat you. That is what's going to show you they're actually a priority for them. Not how they look at you, not the text messages they send you, not the money they spend on you. None of that stuff is going to show you that. What's going to show you whether or not you are them is how they treat you. And that takes time. It takes time for you to fall on a small problem. You might have just woke up feeling stressed out because you saw one too many negative things in your timeline. You just want somebody else's perspective to bring you back to level so you don't feel like you're on the ledge. Will they make time for you? Will they just hear you? Will they listen to what you have to say, even if they believe they can't fix it for you right away? If you're feeling afraid, you might not even have any real reason to be afraid, but it's within their power just to come to you and sit with you. Will they do it? How will you know if you don't give them the opportunity? Or will you just assume that they would? People build their relationships on their assumptions rather than what's actually happening.
Yep.
That's a big podcast.
There it is.
No, girl, you just
there it is. Assumption.
You broke that thing there. And for somebody who's way younger, it's stuff that we don't hear. I'm 32, so this is stuff. Our dating is trash. Like, and I only say trash just because, and it's not trash because of the people. It's because it's things that we are learning. We're learning toxic. I'm just going to call it. We're learning toxic. Everything we are learning is very toxic. Even from some of our elders, it's toxic.
That's true.
So we're trying to figure out how to do it, but we're doing it so wrong.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we definitely need help. I ain't gonna lie.
So I get it.
It's super toxic, and I'm looking like, and I think I'm grateful to be on platforms like this with you guys because you get to finally get the real talk, the things that, thank God, I get to kind of get in the room with y'all and get to hear what y'all really feel and what is really required to build something of substance. We don't hear that. We hear you meet her at the club or you meet her with a friend, you dance a little bit, you get the number, you text a little bit, y'all may go on 1 or 2 dates, then y'all all each other face and y'all together, woo! You know what I'm saying? That is our reality, and it is so screwed up because we see it on social media all day. They can't have no conversations. They arguing and fighting every day on social media, screenshotting, cussing, fussing, get married, have this big old wedding, and still hate each other good.
Yeah, exactly. There's definitely a difference between a wedding and a marriage.
You would throw a whole wedding away. I can care less to ever have one of those again. You hear me?
Like, yeah, I mean,
I can care less. Yeah. I did it. I can care less to do any of that again. Yeah. I will nicely go down to the courthouse and there ain't none of y'all business when I go.
Yeah, exactly.
I just learned from that because I got married really young. Even though my ex-husband was really old, we were 20 years apart. You were thinking of it there. Nah, it wasn't. It was horrible. It was 10 times worse. He was 22. We were 20 together. I'm just telling you what it is.
Weddings are frosted.
Yeah.
Ooh.
The weddings are frosted.
Oh,
Girl, you need to write a blog or something on that. Please write it. Please. Write that blog.
Oh, yo,
because it needs to be said.
Yeah.
I promise. I promise.
You help me. That just put things in perspective for me.
Yeah.
Because I'm out here and I'm open.
I'm so happy.
But I don't move the same with people, and they're like, "You act so old." And y'all just don't know. I got some insight. I don't move like y'all move. And some people like, I have a young guy that I follow, whatever. He says certain things. I'm looking like, but you're saying that from the mindset, your mindset. You can't speak for everybody's mindset.
Exactly.
Everybody don't think the same. Everybody don't move the same way. I hear it with some guys like, well, I don't care if I have sex with a girl on the first night. That don't mean I won't marry her. That part. Yeah. So I was like, it's these weird standards that we're quote unquote living up to, but then, like you said, it's icing in a sense because I don't really take the time to get to know you and your standards and your values and your morals and your character and type of character you're looking for to make sure I align with that. Because I can be lined up with somebody who don't care about none of that. Okay, now we ain't equally yoked because you're like, bro, you don't even line up with what I'm looking for.
That's the case.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Let me ask this question. I know I didn't send it to you guys. Did any of you ever feel guilty being on a date after divorce?
No, I didn't.
No, you didn't? Okay.
Oh, let me say, it took me, I waited about a year and a half, more like 2 years, actually. So by then, I was well past all the initial anger, resentment, confusion, low self-esteem. I had worked my way through all of that. So by the time I actually started dating, I was just enjoying it.
Okay.
I was just having fun meeting new people, by then. So no, I didn't feel guilty. And that was a relief to me, for sure. Because if I had done it any sooner, I probably would have.
Yeah.
I probably would have.
Doc, how did you feel?
Well, I'm going to tell you, I didn't date.
Okay.
I didn't want to swipe right. I just think it's a difference between being single and being single again.
Okay.
And when you come to being in relationship, so my marriage wasn't bad, right? We did a lot of stuff together. We went on a lot of dates. We had some really good times. So I was accustomed to, we would have contests to see who could outdo each other. So he might take me to a hotel and I might take him somewhere, so we had fun. And so just going out and not knowing who you're talking to. And then I had kids and I was like, people carry spirits. And I was like, I don't want to have to fight off no demons on my way home. So I didn't date at all. So when I got married the second time, it was just a friendship that developed. So I didn't, and it wasn't because I felt bad. It wasn't because I felt ashamed or I was like, I shouldn't date. I just don't subscribe to going out with different people and all that kind of stuff because people carry spirits and I just wasn't interested. So I just kind of let it happen from a friendship or something like that.
Okay. I like that. Belize, what about you?
I left. I was gone. Like literally, I missed a lot of my youth in the middle because I got married in the middle of me. Like I just came out of college, my undergrad. So I was dumb young. So when I ended up coming out, I literally dated people in the middle of my divorce. I was mentally out, but I let guys know I didn't do anything physical. Well, one did. I was just bored, but I'm just gonna call it for what it is. But outside of that, I kind of did that, and I was like, after I officially got divorced, I kind of sit your butt down and kind of process what really happened. I'm still not like a huge dater because number one, what I do, everybody can't get down with, and number two, it is I got two boys, and at that I got to be careful who's around my boys because I raise them a certain way, and I want them to learn a certain thing from a certain type of man. So I try to be careful with that. I don't make mistakes, but I try to do better about that. But I'm not a person who just like have all these people date me. Well, a lot of guys are kind of scared because of what I do. But at the end of the day, like I just don't do that. Like I'll go on a date. I think I've been on a date this year. I think I went on 2 dates this year. It was casual and I cut him off. Number one wanted to have sex and one was just too mixture. He was doing too much. I'm like, bro, what do you believe in? This ain't gonna work.
Yeah.
You know, but outside of that, I'm with Doc in a sense. I just kind of gonna let it flow. If I meet somebody and it just let it grow into something great, I'm not really in a place where I want to kind of like, hey, let's just get to know each other and let's really just take our time and get to know each other because a lot of people, like you said, it's the icing at first. You're going to get a whole lot of icing for the first probably close to almost 45 months or 6 months. You're getting icing. People don't really let you in for a while, especially men. They take a minute to finally want to tell you that I was scared to talk to you. You have to be a year in. They take a minute. You know, women tend to want to throw up on people. But men take a minute to finally want to be open and transparent. He's watching you and things like that. So I was like, well, if you're going to take that long to watch me, I won't take that long to make a commitment. And we just going to really just get to know each other and just let it grow into something. Yeah. If it go, it go. If it don't, it don't. I'm not losing.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. That's definitely a good takeaway. And I think the one thing, even with myself, is it's one of those type of deals. I remember, back when I actually kind of felt funny, being on a date after divorce. I was like, oh man, this feels funny. And I think probably the crazy thing is, I would tell anybody, if you're in the process of healing, don't go online because it's so easy to get caught up and get on that whole online dating thing. And it's like, you asking for trouble to a certain degree. And I love the fact that Miss Eden was transparent, talking about, it was a couple years, and she was over certain things and everything. And so, looking back now, I'm like, Lord, I didn't wait long enough. And ended up getting into something that just jacked me all up. I ain't gonna lie. I think probably the takeaway that I have from that relationship was learning certain definitions because the woman told me, I'm bipolar. I was like, well, I didn't know what that meant at the time. I know what it means now. oh my God, I know what that means now. But, like the great poet said, if somebody shows you who they are, believe them. And I think that's a lot of times, we try to, we Jedi mind trick ourselves. We fall in love with the imagination instead of the reality. And a lot of times it's speaking to us right there. And so I love the fact that, we're able to move on. And I think, and this is the last question that I'm going to ask and everything. When did you make up in your mind that you weren't going to cry no more? And that's going to be my last question and everything, because you have to make up in your mind like, I ain't crying over this no more. It is what it is. I'm going to move on. I see where God want to go. And it's time for us to start praising and rejoicing. So if anybody want to take that.
Once my ex-husband had been gone for over a year, and then he came back and he wrote this letter to me, this long email about how he regretted what he did, all that good stuff. And he knew that I would never accept him back again, but it was important to him that he say all this stuff to me. Was really still him trying to get back together again. It was at that point that I had already decided, fortunately for me anyway, I had already got that letter from him. that there was just not going to be a repeat. As much as I didn't want it to end, I was not the one who ended my marriage. He was the one who left and then didn't file a divorce. I had to do that, which brings up that whole women file 80% of the divorces thing. That's not, I mean, I'm sure statistically that's accurate, but it suggests that women wanted to get divorced. And I'm a living witness. That wasn't my case. But at that point, I was done crying about him tearing up our family, about him walking away from everything that we dreamed and planned together. I was just done with it. So when I did get that letter from him, it didn't wipe all my resolve away, and my knees didn't get weak, and I didn't get a lump in my throat, and I didn't start playing Remember When, and I didn't do all of that because I had already worked through it. And that's why I say it was fortunate for me. I understood that no matter what I felt about him, that I could never be in another relationship with him. I understood that. And I think that's something that a lot of people just aren't willing to accept, especially about somebody that they claim to love. I still love him. I love him today. The story of my life is not complete without him. I spent 12 years with him. I could not tell the story of my life entirely without him. The fact that I love him is irrelevant to whether or not I can be in a relationship with him. And once I separated those two things, I could dry my tears.
I like that. All right. Let me put some music on this one. So hey, next to the mic, Doc, you want to talk about you want to answer that question?
Okay, tell me the question again.
When did you make up in your mind that you weren't gonna cry no more? What was the straw that broke the camel's back? And you was like, you know what? I am not crying over this no more.
Wow. Well, I have to tell you that grieving is a process. And so I associate crying with grief. And so we cry physical tears at the beginning because the pain is so new. But then we cry emotional tears every time we hit a milestone. Like, I think about who my children would have been had I not got divorced. I think about where my life would have been had I not got divorced. So every milestone, there's an emotional tear that I still need to deal with. Like, it would have been 20 years we would have been married. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, but when I made the decision that I would never go back to him was when I realized that I cared more about me than he did. Like, it wasn't like he was sitting around saying, you know what, I don't want to hurt this woman. I don't want to break her heart. I don't want to drag her through my foolishness. I didn't matter to him. And when it finally sunk in that I didn't matter, that's when I was able to walk away and stay gone. So for me, crying like an emotional tear, just grieving the loss of what could have been and what should have been is different than walking away and staying gone, because one is a heart move and one is a head move. And until your heart and your head are saying the same thing, you might always have that pull to go back. And so when my head and my heart came together and said, this man don't care nothing about you. And you can't love you more than he loves you. So when that kind of collided, when that trauma of learning that I didn't matter to him, that woke me up and said, it's time to go.
Yeah. All right, Doc. Thank you for that. So, Belize, talk to us. When did you make up in your mind that you ain't going to cry over this?
It took me a year. And the year was the fact that I fought everybody around me for him. That's what pissed me off. Like, I fought my mama. Me and my mom had a horrible relationship because of it. Friendships. I almost lost all my friends. Okay? Thank God they love me. And they were friends. But then I almost lost everybody around me for a fool. Okay? That bothered me. That hurt me more than anything. That the signs were there. And I was just I was so broken that I just wanted to stay broken. That hurt me more than anything. Like, believe, like, why? I think I cried more of why were you just that goddamn low? If you ever go to my church, which I know you said you'll come visit, I rolled on the floor for a year and cried for a year. And it wasn't even about the marriage. It was about, why are you so low? Why have you allowed yourself to stoop this low for anybody? You left your baby daddy, you left that nigga with ease. With no ring. You weren't even trying to get it. You told him you dare not marry him or you'll kill him. And then turned around and married somebody worse than him. How low was I? That really was my biggest thing. I cried. But it took me some time to finally getting up off the floor and say, believe you have personal issues and that's why you married him. This ain't even all about him. You had some things within yourself that you didn't realize until you got with him and it got maximized. Like you literally seen it at the absolute tip to the top. You was at the mountain with your issues with him. And when I realized, okay, you got some problems and you need to go get yourself help and you need to deal with this and don't get another relationship until you really start seeing yourself and able to own your crap. That's when I started crying. I was like, you know what? This is about me. This is really not about you because I left him. I got the divorce. I just like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I'll kill you by accident. Not even an accident. Because he was just making me that angry. And I was like, you're going to make me hurt you. Like, you're pushing me to another level. I swear he's a demon. Like, he was pushing me. So I was like, I got to go before I hurt you. I have a blackout part of me that I don't like. I was like, let me go. And I'm happy I did. I left in a good time because I had a friend prophesy to me. She's like, I seen blood everywhere. It was coming because we were just getting that angry with each other. It was getting that bad. So, yeah, my tears ended after I realized, believe you just was at a low place and now you got the ability to get up and don't put yourself in that place again. Or if you see yourself going there, just to walk away early and you need to do some more work.
I like that. Thank you. Thank you for your transparency. So the one thing I will say is that, and what I see with you phenomenal women is that you didn't let it stop you. And you know, all of you are authors. All of you coach people. You inspire people. And that's the one thing that I love because a lot of times people, you know, they forget about their purpose when they're going through hard stuff. A lot of times people feel like that they've lost their purpose or they lost their dreams and their destinies. But when I see you women right here, that is not the case. And I love the fact that you were transparent enough to come on here and to tell your story. And that's the God knows truth because all of you, even Miss Bennett, she had to leave. She is a phenomenal woman and is doing a whole lot of things, showing people how not to be divorced. You know, she has her whole thing, dating mechanics. Beliefs, you have, the STD life coach. Doc, you do the whole thing, helping people ministerial wise. You're a chaplain. Eden, you are definitely the coach. I call you the sage. And so that's the one thing that I so appreciate because the Bible says that we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and by the words of our testimony. All of you are living testimonies of what God can do and how God can be. And it's not the end. And so I love the fact that you didn't let divorce define who you are, where you're going to go. And that's my takeaway when I see you guys. So yeah, we definitely going to have to do this again. But I want to, you guys just, tell us what you got going on, what you do, how people can get in contact with you. I'm going to start with you first, Belize. Talk to us.
Okay, so the biggest way you can find me is on Instagram. Like, that's probably the easiest way so you can follow. You'll follow me, but you can also go to my website, www.stdlifecoach.com. You ain't going to jack it up because I'm the only one who's going to pop up. So you ain't going to jack it up. But I'm here to help anybody who's dealing with herpes. Number one, that's the main thing I deal with. Let's talk because so many people are dealing with this in silence, especially in their marriages. Or in their relationship, and it is literally taking a toll because that person went into the marriage, did not disclose, or found out in the marriage because of infidelity, or simply just didn't know their status, and it literally can destroy a relationship. And so many people try to kind of work through it, but that person has some resentment. That person now have low self-esteem, things like that. So I always want to help couples or even individuals get through that, because I'm a strong believer in until you accept yourself, you don't need to be in a relationship. You don't need to be opening your legs to nobody, because at the end of the day, you're just going to expect them to make up what you have not done.
Yeah, definitely. Tell us about that sex course you got. Just give us a little bit.
Oh yeah, so I do have a course called Sex After. So I pretty much teach people how they can have sex after herpes, because many people believe you got an STI you can't get rid of. Why are you having sex? Which I get it. I don't even take offense no more with that. But I understand that mindset, because you believe, no, there's no way you can have sex. And there's no way that you can enjoy your sex life, or your partner can enjoy you anymore. But that's not true. Literally, I have had a whole lot of sex after my status. So yes, it's very possible. I had kids and everything. Clearly, I got married. So it didn't hinder anything. So it really deals with the person getting to a place where they get out their own mind that they can't have something anymore because of this happened, and them learning how to go through every stage, through learning their body, communicating with their partner, disclosing how sex will feel and look to them now, and all those things like that. So yeah, all that you can find on my website, www.stdlifecoach.com, and also follow me at Coach Belief on Instagram.
All right, thank you for that. All right, Miss Eden, the Sage, talk to us.
Thank you, Brother Leon. Oh my goodness, this is another good one. I enjoy being on these panels with you. Thank you again for inviting me. It's always a pleasure and a privilege. Primarily on Facebook, that's where my party is. I do a relationship post every day to get people thinking about how they do relationships, which is something that most people don't want to do. They want to feel their way through, and they don't think about it enough. And so my posts are designed to slow people down and get them to actually consider the outcome of the actions that they're taking, and not focus so much on what their feelings are. So find me on Facebook at Get Back to Passion. One word. Find me there. And hit my DMs if you want to. I do respond personally. Or you can get in the comments and play with all the rest of us. So come on by and say hi.
All right. Hey, Miss Eden, tell us about your book.
Yes, Satisfillment is the name of the book. Your Proven Pathway to Power. It is available on Amazon and paperback and hardcover. And it is it's my guidebook. It's not a story. It's not a novel. It's not anything like that. It's a guidebook for finding your way back to who you actually are outside of everybody else you're connected to, which is something we typically lose sight of, just getting from one day to the next day. So it's just a really simple and repeatable way you can do that at any time you want. It's 6 points. The whole book is 50 pages, maybe. So it's accessible, it's bite-sized, it's digestible by anybody who wants to use it that way. So that's why I wrote it, and it's available on Amazon. Thank you for asking.
All right. Thank you. All right, Doc, talk to us.
All right. You can find me on Facebook as Shellarine Lane. You can find me on Instagram as Dr. Shellarine. You can find me on Twitter at Rev Sheller. You can find me on LinkedIn as Reverend Dr. Shellarine Lane. You can find me on Clubhouse at Reverend Dr. Shellarine Lane. I have a community called empoweredtobegreat.com. And you can actually just go to Google and type in my name, and all my stuff will show up. My website is desicajosflow.com. So you'd have to go to my Instagram or my Clubhouse, see how to spell that. But it's DESAKAJOSFLO.com. And I'm working on book number 10, and I'm going to release it in September, which is only a few days away, but it's not going to be a few days away. It'll be later on in September. It's called Spiritual Awakening, 7 Shifts from Who I Am to Who I Am Becoming. And so I'm just enjoying life on this journey and just continuing to say yes to God, and God will continue to open doors. So I thank you for this opportunity. I thank you for this platform.
All right. Thank you. All right. Well, hey, ladies, I so appreciate all of you. We're getting ready to end this room, but I just want to say, hey, I thank you for saying yes to God. I thank you for saying yes to yourselves and also being willing to come on here and to tell people your story. So I just want to thank you for that. We definitely going to, put this up. It's going to be uploaded to the podcast. So I'll be sending you all links real soon. All right. So we getting ready to end this room right now. And I just want to wish you guys a blessed evening. And I want to say thank you. All right.
Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
Thank you. Hey.
All right. All right, guys. So that was the Love Collective. And I think the one thing that I want you guys to understand and know is that there is a takeaway with divorce. I want you to understand that divorce doesn't have to define you. And the reason why I'm doing this is because my thing is that I believe that we all need help. I believe that we all need to hear testimonies because we may be in seasons and we may be in, trials that try to come to break us. But the one thing I want you to know, like I said, that all things work together for our good, even this. And so right now, it may be painful. It may be one of those things of uncertainty and anxiety and even fear. But the one thing that I want you to take away is that God is with you. And if God is with you, and if God is for you, who can be against you? So you may say, well, Brother Leon, what if I'm the one that messed up my marriage? There is redemption for you. God can redeem the time. And the crazy thing about it is that God can even heal the relationship if that person is willing to reconcile. Now, granted, depending on what you did, it may not be a guarantee. But regardless whether there's reconciliation or not, you have to be healed. And that's the one thing that I want you to know. There has to be healing when you have a breakup. Because it's not fair that we use relationships and call ourselves using them as healing agents, and they're not. And then we bleeding all over people, and it's not fair. Nobody asked for that. But the one thing that I want you guys to understand and know is that God, he healeth the broken in heart, and he mendeth their wounds. He can heal the broken heart. He can heal the brokenness. That which is eternal can heal the internal. Because the eternal made the internal. He even made the external. And so we got to go back to God. We got to go back to not only God, but also therapy. Because we have to know, how do we get here? There's patterns for everything. There's even patterns for failure. So you have to begin to understand and know, okay, what is it going to take? What is it going to take for me to learn this pattern? What is it going to take for me to understand, the decisions that I'm making, why I do what I do? Because I ain't going to lie, I was there. I'm there right now. Seriously. Want to understand, how did this fail? Where did I lose sight? How can I not do this again? Seriously. Oh yeah, I'll be telling you, I'll be giving you my confession soon. But at the end of the day, you have to realize that, man, this is real. I ain't gonna lie, man. Life is not fair and life hurts. But the one thing that I love about God, he gives us strength for the day. The Bible says, as thy days are, so shall thy strength be. And if the day is trying to break you, if the time is trying to break you, then God can give you strength that can make you unbreakable. Yeah, is it going to happen? Yeah. Is the weapon going to be formed? We always go with that scripture. No weapon formed against me shall prosper. But the crazy thing about it, it don't never say that that is going to stop the weapon from triggering. But the one thing about the weapon, even though the weapon was formed and even though it was triggered, I'm not dead. So yeah, you might have took that sword. You might have took that dagger. You might have took that dart. You might have took that arrow. You might have took that poison. But you're not dead. And that's the main thing. You're getting up. And that's the one thing about life, man. We got to keep getting up. Keep getting up. So it was definitely a pleasure doing this because there's definitely lessons to be learned and takeaways, because life has a way of giving you teachers who you never expect. But the one thing about it is that God is the ultimate teacher. And if we listen to God, if we listen to what God has placed in us, our intuition, our hearts, our guts, what is your gut telling you? Then we may avoid some of these landmines and pitfalls. But we got to start listening. We got to be aware and we got to be present. So with that, guys, I love you. This is the end.
Walk in the truth that makes you free every day. Follow Brother Leon on all social media outlets.